looking into Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and listen to what it has to say about the meaning of life. And when you go through not just a chapter but the book, this may be one question that will come to mind. If this can life be meaningless for the Christian? Now, the book of Ecclesiastes is not your typical motivational book. You won't hear a lot of positivity from its author. It doesn't sugarcoat its declarations. In fact, it throws itself into discussing the deep and heavy stuff about life. Most agree that King Solomon indeed wrote this book and probably did so sometime during his old age. From an initial reading of chapter 1, we learn that the author has lived a long life by the time he wrote the book. He's done a lot, accomplished a lot, and learned a lot, and with all those in view, he pens the book. So let's look at chapter 1. It begins with the words of the teacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Futile, futile, laments the teacher, absolutely futile. Everything is futile. So I guess you know where this goes. What benefit do people get from all the effort which they expend on earth? A generation comes and goes, but the earth remains the same through the ages. The sun rises and the sun sets. It hurries away to a place from which it rises again. The wind goes to the south and circles around to the north. Round and round the wind goes, and on its rounds it returns. All the streams flow into the sea, but the sea is not full. And to the place where the streams flow, there they will flow again. All this monotony is tiresome. No one can bear to describe it. The eye is never satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear ever content with hearing. What exists now is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing truly new on earth. Is there anything about which someone can say, look at this, it's new? It was already done long ago before our time. And no one remembers the former events, nor will anyone remember the events that are yet to happen. They will not be remembered by the future generations. I, the teacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. I decided to carefully and thoroughly examine all that has been accomplished on earth. I concluded God has given people a burdensome task that keeps them occupied. I reflected on everything that is accomplished by man on earth, and I concluded everything he has accomplished is futile, like chasing the wind. What is bent cannot be straightened, and what is missing cannot be supplied. Now, it should be mentioned that the original word for, the meaning in the original of this word bent is quite interesting. It talks about the irregularities in life and obstacles to human secular achievement, accomplishing anything of ultimate value. So we're talking about the ultimate value here. It says what is bent cannot be straightened, and what is missing cannot be supplied. So these irregularities, obstacles, and hindrances, it's like Solomon is saying, there's nothing you can do about it. So that's what he means there. So let's continue. Oh, sorry, I forgot to remove that one. 16. I thought to myself, I have become much wiser than any of my predecessors who ruled over Jerusalem. I have acquired much wisdom and knowledge. So I decided to discern the benefit of wisdom and knowledge over foolish behavior and ideas. However, I concluded that even this endeavor is like trying to chase the wind. For with great wisdom comes great frustration. Whoever increases his knowledge merely increases his heartache. Now, from the way he perceives life, we can catch that he's speaking from a position where one is far from God or living in disconnect from him. Chapter 1 paints a life that is lived in isolation from God and His will, a life focused on this world and confined to this world. Let's see what observations are shared by King Solomon, the wisest king who ever lived in his time. Probably the man who acquired, experienced it, and achieved all that can be desired during his lifetime. So let's look at some observations here. everything is futile. That's what he thinks. There is no benefit from all the efforts we expend on this earth. People come and go, but nothing changes. The world continues as it has always been. He also thinks that life is one monotonous and tiring experience. Can you relate to that? There is no satisfaction or contentment to be had. Now, when you're feeling down, I think when I, at least for me, sometimes, things I do, this gets to the back of my mind. Is there really any benefit from what I'm doing? Or when I look at the things that preoccupy me, I mean, all the efforts that I put in, some of them I look back and, sorry, I think there's no benefit to that. And sometimes that's a good thing, and it helps you prioritize things and cut some activities off that there's no benefit to. But, they're it's talking about all the efforts, and I disagree with that. If you prioritize right and if your passions are set right, there will be benefit. So again, we need to remember that Solomon at this time was speaking from a point where he was living far from God or disconnected from Him. So anyway, where was I? There's nothing new under the sun. He also said that everything is forgettable and will be forgotten, and this is true, right? Excuse me. People will forget, and sometimes when your name goes through the books, like famous people from before, sometimes the biographies and the accounts are not as accurate. But of course, some events will be remembered. Some people will not be forgotten. But a lot of times, for the commoners, like the things that you do, even right now, you do something good for somebody, and then you do something bad, and all that person will remember is the bad thing that you have done. So I can relate to this as well. Doing life is a burdensome task. Oh yeah. A number of times for me, I'm gonna speak for myself. I feel this way, but um, why does it become burdensome? When you think about First Corinthians 10:31, everything you do should be done for the glory of God. So I've learned through the years. Like when I was younger, I hated housework, house activities, house stuff at home that you need to do. But as I get older, I realize the home is my primary ministry, and I'm glad that God turned my heart around and my focus around, and brought this sense of enjoyment for house chores for me, and taking care of my kids, taking care of my husband. In the Western culture, and since I arrived here, this is not my native country. Like, anyway, what I'm saying is, I don't want to ramble. What I'm saying is, in some cultures, like the equality between the man and the woman is so emphasized, and um, it's like when a woman is left to herself, fending for the kids and the husband and doing things around the house, it's like it becomes a burdensome task. But you know, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that way. And somebody told me one time, "Oh, I feel sorry for you because you're taking care of your husband that way. It's like you're doing so much." It's like, I mean, if you listen to that, kind of mentality, and at a time in your life when you're out of focus, and you don't know your ministry, your primary ministry as a wife and as a mother, you start to think, yeah, why am I doing so much? Why do I have to do this for him? Why do I have to do this for them? But if you look at it from the focus of from the a sense of, these are blessings to me. Some people don't have husbands, some people don't have children, and God has given me these blessings, these relationships, this ministry that I have direct and personal influence, that I can serve and see if I do good, if I do right, the results would be instant, not instant, but the results would be visible. I mean, I know I did something good in the life of this person. Some people, the singles, the young ones, they have to go out and do ministry, but those who have families, those who are in in a community, direct indirect interaction with a community like a family, you have the greatest opportunities to do good and glorify God in the process. So yeah, doing life should not be burdensome in general. But if you're disconnected from God and from His purposes, it can be that way. So anyway, what else? All man's accomplishments are meaningless and empty. And there are things you can never change. And this is so true. And sometimes we can beat ourselves up over something we said, something we've done years ago. This is a weakness of mine. Sometimes things pop up in the past. Sometimes you're not even aware and they just come up and they trouble you. I mean, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why did that happen? And you can let those kinds of thoughts rob you of time and joy. You wallow in them and think about what should have been said, what should have been done, what should have happened. But there are things we can never change, and you should move on from that. There are longings and lacking you cannot fulfill or satisfy, and that's true. Um, Single people, or those who grew up from a dysfunctional home, they call these hang-ups and baggages that they carry through as they grow up. And some of them, I personally have experience with this. That when you grow up in an environment that's not healthy, the longings are more, and the lacking is greater. And if you don't find God early on, and if you don't find God a joy to fellowship with, if you're more into what's visible and material and physical, it may be an endless cycle of, hit and miss, trial and error. How am I going to satisfy this need in my life? And this is harder to navigate and sort out if you're far from God. Next, all the knowledge, wisdom, education, and experience you collect in this life is meaningless and empty. Some people, you'd meet some of them, they're just so into much wisdom and information, you know, collecting titles and all that stuff, and that becomes their pride. But if you look at it, it can be meaningless and empty when it's all self-centered. So yeah, you could be right there. More wisdom brings more frustration and heartache, and that is so true. Sometimes, in knowing more, sometimes you resolve less. You know what I mean? Like the more you know about something, it's like the more you see the more the problem escalates or enlarges in your side, because the more wisdom you have about a problem or anything that's challenging, the more frustration can set in and heartache. Like the more you know about a person, sometimes the more heartache you get. It comes up sometimes in conversations. I don't want to know. Just don't tell me. Don't hurt me more. I don't want to talk about the betrayal. I don't want to talk about what happened. The less I know, the better it is for me. The less I know, the lesser I have to deal with stuff. So sometimes they say ignorance is bliss. Well, everything Solomon said was quite straightforward. Some truths are very impactful though, and I've noted some of them personally down as I reread the passage. And this is one that spoke to me, that when you focus on this life and when you get caught up in this life, sooner or later you will realize that it is futility. And when you get rooted up here on this temporary place and temporary situations, it can be futile, it can be empty, it can be meaningless. The preoccupations and pursuits of this world do not last. They do not yield lasting results nor bring lasting fulfillment and satisfaction. We hear this from stories of successful people all the time. The fulfillment and satisfaction is not lasting. There is always something that needs to be done, more accumulation that needs to happen. And then when you get there, it's still not enough. Your accomplishments will be forgotten. Whatever name you make for yourself is not forever. Whatever feats you have achieved won't always be as impressive. Someone will outdo what you have done. What else? Life can be a tiring and meaningless happening and repetition for the one who doesn't see value in what he does. The preoccupations and pursuits of this world do not last. They do not yield lasting results nor bring lasting fulfillment and satisfaction. Your accomplishments will be forgotten. Whatever name you make for yourself is not forever. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry about that. I've said that already, sorry. Next, a life lived apart from God and without. Oh, there's so many mistakes in this PowerPoint. I'm sorry about that. A life lived apart from God and without consideration of His purposes can start feeling like a burden instead of a blessing, right? If you don't see God's purposes in it, and worse, sometimes you're doing right. It's just that you're discouraged. But when you see it once more, why are you doing this? And it's for divine purposes, for God driven purposes. Then you go back to seeing it as a blessing. But sometimes, if you're really apart from His purposes and His will, that's not a good place, because when things get overwhelming, everything can really be a burden. So worldly recognition is temporary, a pursuit in the wind. It's something you can never reach or keep. The direction is always shifting, right? And not only worldly recognition, anything that brings joy and whatever, any pursuit. It's like, oh, one day it's this, the next day this is the new thing. The direction is always shifting, and what people in the world sees as fulfilling and satisfying now will change. And so it's hard to keep up with the world. That's what I'm saying. There are things in this earthly life that cannot be undone. Yep. And life will always be lacking in some ways, and some gaps or needs may never get filled. Even having the best family, being raised in the best family, having great children, having the greatest husband ever, they can never fill that spot that is meant for God to fill in your life. And so you cannot root yourself in this world. You cannot place your hopes on any human person, no matter how great they may be, because it's God's place to do that in your life. It's God's place to fill the gap fully and to fulfill your life. So, what else? Even more wisdom and knowledge can't ever be enough. In understanding more, confusion and sorrow can multiply. The more you know, oh, this is so true. The more you realize how limited you are. The more you get to know about things, the more you see, oh, how ignorant have I been, and how much more I still have to go. I thought I already knew a lot, but I know nothing. When we view life from earthly perspectives, we can wrongly deem as important the things that matters are actually not. Sometimes the wrong things become the important things. The the wrong things can become the essential things, but we need to see things in light of eternity to get a proper view once more. Things become empty and worthless when you make them as a means to themselves. Material things and worldly attainments are a means to do something. That is, to do God's will, bring honor to Him, just enjoy the moment, but they are not the ultimate pursuit. So this spells trouble, when they become a means to themselves, like getting money. It's just a means. It's not the end. You you work hard, you exert diligence to earn money so you can bless others and provide for your own needs and that of your family. But that's not an ultimate pursuit. The ultimate pursuit is doing God's will, bringing honor to Him, and enjoying all the blessings that He has given you in this life while they are there. When we view life from earthly perspectives, we can wrongly. Hey, I already said that, sorry. What is wrong today? I don't think I'm gonna do this again, so I'm sorry, just please bear with me. Um, I'm gonna go straight to the practical application. And so, what's the result? What's the response? That's the practical application part. Our thoughts may likely run similar when God is out of the picture. And this can be the case when we are not in pursuit of His will for our life and we become disconnected. So, what's the practical application for that? Our resolve should be to keep God in your life and keep Him center. In response to all these things we've learned about Ecclesiastes chapter 1, it's to stay mindful of eternity and of what's lasting. Right? What else? Your hopes should always be on the future. Your priorities should be on what spiritual and relational, which is what God and important relationships, families, friends, ministry, getting connected with people that God brings to your life to minister to and to grow together with. That's it. Rather than material. And since nothing earthly is lasting and fully satisfying, you should not fixate on earthly and material pursuits. You should also be careful not to put most of your efforts on things that have little or no eternal value. Be careful not to tie yourself to death on things that are of little value compared to what's important and even eternal. So it is a challenge for us today. There's so many preoccupations we can have right now in this world. Got gadgets and stuff, the internet, everything, different passions, different hobbies. And if we get rooted in this world and just have earthly perspective to things, we'll get tired one day. We'll realize that it's a monotonous thing, and we may get depressed and feel down like Solomon did at this particular time of his life. So keep God, keep Him center. Place our hopes in God and in the future. Enjoy the temporary things. Enjoy the people God has blessed you with and the relationships He has blessed you with. Enjoy the opportunities for ministry and service that He has given to you. And try not to stress. Do the best you can. We will always be limited. And we will make mistakes. But if the heart is right, it's like just honoring God one step at a time. He will forgive our mistakes. He will grow us into better Christians, and He will bless our efforts. So God bless. Again, sorry for some of the errors on this slides that I did. I might upload this and decide to do a better one later. But anyway, God bless you. Until next time.